Hello, today is Wednesday, August the 26th, and this is blog 35. We're looking at a Welsh saint, Celtic saint, called Saint Tysilio. This guy was born into a royal family, but he did not want to become the king. He in fact became an abbot and a bishop, and he's remembered for his scholarship and his engagement with the politics of his day. So Saint Tysilio lived round about AD 580 to 640. I'm going to just talk about him in terms of a fruitful man, a man who was planted into good soil by God and who was fruitful. And whatever happened to him, he was fruitful because he didn't allow his seed to be planted into shallow soil, nor into thorny ground where it would be consumed. And as we tell the story of Tysilio, let us think about the parable of the sower, which is what I will read in a moment. So Tysilio's father was a king, and as a young man he fled the royal court in order to become a monk. When his dad recognised that he'd left, he sent a group of armed men to reclaim him, but somehow Tysilio managed to persuade these armed men to go back without him. He later became based at the Menai Straits. He was a good evangelist, and he particularly evangelised the island of Anglesey on northwest Wales. He was called after a few years to come back to become the abbot of Myford. Later on in his life, the family that he was brought up in asked if he would come back and become king of Powys. But again, he resisted, and despite persecution, he took his team, his Christian team, and fled to Brittany. So he remained a religious throughout his life. He did have impact on the era in which he lived. Politically, people listened to him, but he did so as a bishop and as an abbot, not as a prince. Tysilio, a life well lived. Now let me read the parable of the sower, Matthew chapter 13. That same day, Jesus went out of the house and sat by the lake. Large crowds gathered around him, and he got into a boat and sat in it, while all the people stood on the shore. Then he told them many things in parables, saying, a farmer went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path, and birds came and ate it up. Some fell on rocky places where it didn't have much soil. It sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow. But when the sun came up, the plants were scorched, and they withered because they had no root. Other seed fell amongst thorns, which grew up and choked the plants. Still other seed fell on good soil, where it produced a crop, 160 or 30 times what was sown. He who has ears, let him hear. I'm going to now read the interpretation of that story that Jesus told his disciples because they didn't understand it. By the way, there's only two parables that Jesus ever explained. So here Jesus' explanation. Listen then to what the parable of the sower means. When anyone hears the message about the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what was sown in his heart. This is the seed sown along the path. What was sown on rocky places is the man who hears the word and at once receives it with joy, but since he has no root, he lasts only a short time. When trouble or persecution comes because of the word, he quickly falls away. What was sown amongst the thorns is the man who hears the word, but worries of this life, and the deceitfulness of wealth choke it, making it unfruitful. But what was sown on good soil is the man who hears the word and understands it. He produces a crop, yielding 160 or 30 times what was sown. I think Saint Tysilio was a man who resisted the royal court and obeyed the call of God to do what he had to do in ministry. I think this was a fruitful man. He did not build on sandy ground. He, in fact, was one who was based on God. Let's live a life like that.